In Hirohiko Araki's book and guide to creating manga, Manga in Theory and Practice, Araki outlines how he believes an effective story is to be portrayed through the medium as visualizing a group of 5 circles. The first is your characters, the vessels through which your audience is introduced to the ideas of the story and its motivations. The second of the circles is story. Just as important as the characters, the story is what draws the reader in. It's what gives the manga its impact and value. Third is setting. Without an interesting or compelling setting, your manga just falls flat. If every story were to exist in a vacuum with no setting, then what are the stakes? The largest part of this bunch is themes. Themes identify and influence characters through motivations, goals, ideals, and philosophies. Themes also are the representation of the very lessons that art portrays. Themes are the message the author wants to convey to the reader for a better understanding of their own ideals or wishing to impact the reader's knowledge of the topics mentioned. And finally, the thing that holds these spheres together is art. Represented as a ring enveloping all these elements and tying them together, the spheres are important ideas, but without the vision to portray them with art, they fall apart from each other or simply become a novel or essay. This philosophy is what Araki follows when creating his manga and can be seen through many of his characters. JoJo in Paris was an exhibition held in 2003, where Araki was invited to show his artwork in an independent exhibition with no ties to the manga companies that he had previously worked with. Araki's artworks featured involved many of his characters from the franchise he had spent the last 16 years developing, ranging from artworks of Phantom Blood all the way to his most recent part at the time, Stone Ocean. When the event had concluded, Araki and the event and gallery owner, Paolo Vendovi, were interviewed and published in summer 2003 issue of Quarterly S magazine. Araki, when asked a question regarding as to how he sees his art either as abstract or traditional, he states that he studies Western painting such as artists as Velázquez and Gauguin, and he hadn't had much interest in abstract art. He continues to say, "Manga artists have many roles, such as script writing, photography, and acting, but I like to think of them as artists too. It's not that I dislike abstract art or anything, it's just not something I'm interested in. I'm more interested in the classical side of art, so I guess you could say I'm more of a neo-Velázquez." When the curator of the gallery was asked, "What do you personally think is the most interesting part of Araki's art?" he responds, "Above all else, beauty. The pursuit of beauty is something that is gradually disappearing from society. We're also stepping into a new era that has never existed before. He's creating a new era that is completely different from the manga and anime I saw as a kid. That's what I'm interested in." He goes on to state that his then 6-year-old son at the time was a fan of Araki's work with JoJo. This is not where Araki's influence in France has stopped. France is one of the largest markets for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure outside of Japan, being one of the only languages all parts of JoJo are translated into, as the first volume of JoJo Lands is set to be released in France in the summer of 2024. According to the JoJo fandom wiki, France had its first released volumes of the manga in its native language starting on January 19th of 2002, which began the serialization of parts 1 through 4, ending on the 2nd of December 2005. 2 years later, in April of 2007, the company Tonkam picked up the mantle and had translated parts 5 through 7 into French and republished parts 1 through 4. The company to this day is the main translator of official JoJo media in France, finishing its serialization with the final release of Volume 27 of JoJolion on July 12, 2023, nearly 2 years since the part's original ending in Japan. In stark contrast, JoJo's first mainstream appearance in the United States and England didn't gain notoriety until 2012, when David Productions released the first season of JoJo covering Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency. There were several attempts before to popularize JoJo in the West, such as the 1993 OVA series which adapted the latter half of the third part, Stardust Crusaders, with the earlier half of the part being developed later in the year 2000. However, this could be seen as a flop as it hardly generated interest in the series. The manga for Stardust Crusaders, titled JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Legacy for the Future, serialized Part 3 from 2005 to 2010. Overall, it was a failure as it was just re-released by Viz Media in 2016 under its current title, Stardust Crusaders. So why is America so behind the curve? Well, the common idea is there's an issue with the translation of copyrighted names. But this isn't true, as when we see the anime and video games, they release within a few years or even months from their original airings in Japan with copyright-friendly names. So what's the holdup? Well, before JoJo, Araki released a manga entitled Bow. This manga was a severe flop in the United States, and thus when JoJo began serialization back in the 1980s, no company wanted to risk the sales that may have followed due to the stigma and lack of confidence in Araki's work. In comparison, in Europe, there is a strong market for domestic and international comics, France being the powerhouse of such. France is estimated to make up 40% of the European market for manga, according to Wikipedia. Publisher Weekly states that over the last decade, manga sales in France have quadrupled. This means translators are more focused on translating to the, comparatively, more massive audiences in Europe, where volume releases of manga are released in official translations months, even years ahead of the States in some cases. This isn't exclusive to JoJo either, as other popular series such as Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer gain an international audience. Companies are quick to secure publication rights in their own countries. Viz Media's JoJonium, a project where they released the first 3 parts in modern translations, initially begun with the digital release of Volume 1 of Phantom Blood on September 2nd of 2014, being followed with its physical release in February of 2015. Since then, the physical releases of the manga have been severely spread out and slow to start, releasing months after each previous volume. This isn't because Viz has trouble acquiring the rights to the manga though, as when they had released the translation of Araki's book mentioned earlier in the video, they had translated panels from part 8. They obviously have the resources to do such, so what's the reason? As of the writing of this essay, the most recent volume to be released was Volume 1 of Stone Ocean in late 2023, nearly a year after the anime for the part had ended. My hypothesis is Viz Media waits to release these volumes after the anime had already aired, as that would maximize the amount of awareness of the manga and make people want to buy it. The problem is, though, most people don't read the manga because they've seen it on the screen. Though that may be the goal for some collectors who wish to own the media that they've seen on the screen on paper on their shelves, most people, at least from personal experience, read the manga because they want to see what happens next. You see, anime adaptations of certain manga can sometimes take years, or in the case of JoJo, decades to even begin, much less be caught up on the series. It's been over a year since the end of Stone Ocean's anime, and with no announcement of Steel Ball Run in sight, one can assume JoJo is going to go through another significant content drought similar to the end of Vento Arreo. I don't believe it's wise for Viz to draw out the release of Stone Ocean, as in the West for some reason, most fans regard it as the worst part, despite the fact many of them also claim in the same breath that it has some of the best characters such as Weather Report, Pucci, and Morioh, etc. Most Western fans care far more about Steel Ball Run than any other part before or after Part 3, which is a real shame. Most Steel Ball Run fans don't even bother continuing the story of the alternate universe in JoJolion, which includes a satisfying end to Johnny Joestar's character arc as well as establishing more laws of the alternate universe which these characters will continue to follow. JoJolion was the longest running part thus far in JoJo's history, serializing over the course of a decade monthly with occasional hiatuses from Araki for his health and stamina to recover. I mean, you gotta hand it to the man, he's like 60 years old at this point. One could say, oh, well, France has released the manga behind Japan, releasing months and sometimes years after like you said earlier, but this can be countered with the idea that volume releases of JoJo don't come out until at least 4 chapters have passed since the last volume. I mean, Volume 2 of JoJo Lands in Japanese released back in December with only 10 chapters of the story thus far. And I'm going off script here, but that being said, literally Volume 1 of JoJo Lands released last year. Volume 1 of JoJo Lands in French is supposed to release in 2024. So, Viz, you gotta step your game up. Anyways, back to the script. I understand companies want to get the most money possible from their franchises, but the problem is that in America there's hardly any merch for a JoJo fan to enjoy. In comparison to Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Dragon Ball Z, which have not only clothes and accessories but high-end collectibles available too, you can only look at the lackluster situation in America and groan with disappointment. Other than the occasional t-shirt from Hot Topic or Spencer's, or the agonizingly drawn-out release of the manga, there's hardly anything for fans to support the series with. It's a shame, as I truly believe many fans would love to buy the manga with their favorite parts as well as the merch. I mean, I even collect French volumes of JoJolion. I only have 6 so far, but due to the fact I can read some French, and I've read the part 4 times since I caught up to it in 2018, I can still understand the events happening. Yes, I know Volume 5 was missing, it was lost in the mail, I have it now, I just didn't want to take another picture. The problem with Viz's releases is they're literally losing more money by the month. When new chapters release digitally in Japan for Ultra Jump, Only mere hours later, fans released their own faithful translations, which are published online for free, taking revenue not only away from Viz and its associates, but also Araki himself. American audiences love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, with it being referenced in media outside of anime several times. I mean, Jesus, even Paw Patrol referenced it. Can't believe I talked about Paw Patrol in a video. Well, anyways. The games for JoJo are another missed market. I mean, Japan had 3 JoJo mobile games. Granted, they're all shut down now, but one of the most popular was Pitter Patter Pop, a gacha block matching game where you collected characters from parts 1 through 5 of the series before it was discontinued due to poor performance. I mean, you couldn't even download it on an American device, you had to have a Japanese Apple ID to download it. JoJo is a series beloved by so many that it's a shame the States doesn't catch up to even its European competitors. Viz's $25 price tags for English volumes is absolutely horrendous, especially when volumes for European-speaking countries, depending on stock and popularity, can go as low as $7 per volume in some cases. Yeah, this video is just a rant, and I kinda sound dumb, but I love this series more than it's probably normal for anyone else to love. Like, my artwork has even been affected so heavily that I really draw anything that's not JoJo reminiscent anymore. So, Viz, if literally anyone in charge of JoJo's release in America can see this, please release more content, and I swear to God, not another Rohan one-shot, I might go insane. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, why don't you hit that subscribe and like button? This is my first video ever, and it'd be much appreciated if I could gain an audience. Depending on this video's performance, I may release more essays on JoJo in the future, or even specific parts of the storyline. So if you have any suggestions, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time. Au revoir!